interesting as the previous one. It's about present challenges and what will CSCs look like in 10 years. We have with us Shri J. Satyanarayana Ji, Secretary, Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Shri P.K. Chaudhary Ji, Advisor, Development and Governance Reforms, Government of Haryana. Lead discussant, session moderator, Shri R. Sumantra Ji, IT Advisor, Government of Haryana. Shri Dinesh Tyagi Ji, CEO, CSC E-Governance Services India Limited. Dr. Sanjay Sood, Head SEMT, Chandigarh Administration. Shri Nilaya Verma, Partner Accenture. I will now request Shri P.K. Chaudhary I would now request Shri R. Sumantra Ji to take the charge of the session.
Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, this is a sort of an imaginative session that we have had because the CSC program started about 8 years back and it has started evolving. Let me go into a little bit of history as to how the CSC program started. We had one of these very successful projects called NCA 21, which perhaps most of you would know. And when we were doing this project, we did massive reforms of the processes. So we suddenly realized that there is going to be a huge gap, even though the key stakeholder was the industry, and industry was very digital savvy. This was in the year 2002-2004. And then we said we will have what is called as the physical front offices. So we had this PFOs that were coming in. Essentially, these were the sort of kiosks or assisted centers that you had in about 52 locations nationwide, who would take in requests for corporate filings and providing assistance to the corporate sector. And then Mr. Satyanarayana did a master stroke there. He pulled out this PFO concept, and at that time he was working in NISG as the head of NISG, and he created Bangalore One out of that. Okay, Bangalore One served as an iconic piece, and this came in much before NCA 21. But the concept was essentially the same, and it was very, very important for us to have that because we were still trying to find, ascertain whether such a model is going to be working or not. So he pulled out, we had a successful Bangalore One, but Bangalore One was just the front end. The next stage of evolution was his second baby, which is eSeva, okay, which is a very household name in the CSC sector in India. eSeva had one more step of advancement, which is integrating the back end into the system. So which means you had a front end and you had a back end integrated together working as one piece. That became a model for the present day CSCs. This session is of particular interest to us because we had the, if I can take the liberty of saying, the first mover disadvantage. Haryana was the first state to have 100% coverage of CSCs, 1,159 in all, and it was the first state to fail. Okay, so we are at a point where we are relaunching this because CSC is a mega program. And what we have done right now in terms of notification of the CSC scheme is we have recognized the meganess of this project. The investments so far in CSCs have been more than $1.2 billion. That's a very, very conservative estimate. Perhaps I'm, quoting a little less, but that is the type of investments that have gone in to form the CSC. Okay. We are now at an inflection point where we have to see, is the model that we have taken for the CSC, is it going to be sustainable? What are the problems today and how do we go into the future? So it's quite a bit of, it's an imaginative type of a discussion that we need to have. And I would kindly request all the panelists to sort of think out of the box and and come up, even if the ideas are wild. And if I were given the liberty of naming this particular session, even though I had to name this, I would have said managing government with Facebook. Okay, why not we use Facebook to manage services of the government? So with that, I would like to set the tone for this discussion. There are three paradigms that we'll be looking at while going into the future. The first one is the technology paradigm. If you look at the penetration of mobile technology in the last 10 years, mobile technology has revolutionized the way technology is being utilized. There are newer and newer technologies that are coming in. Today, big data is one such technology which is coming in. The second paradigm is the service delivery paradigm. And when we are delivering services, the critical underlying factor is the data, the comprehensiveness of data and the accuracy of data. Okay. So this is the second paradigm that is evolving, and the integration between the data. I mean, all these have been discussed at length all through the day, so I will not go into the details of this. And the third and the most important paradigm is the good governance paradigm. We are talking of C to G, that is citizen to government, which means you're reversing the flow of services or flow of interactions that is coming to the CSCs. Okay. With this background, I invite Ms. Chowdhury, erstwhile Chief Secretary, and who has been instrumental in getting our current CSC scheme, the visionary scheme, approved for the state. He's played a critical role, and I've always enjoyed working with him and attending all his meetings. And all of his meetings were very, thought-provoking and enthusiastic to me. And I would kindly invite you to come over and share your thoughts in terms of going forward. What is it that we should be expecting? How would the CSCs, how are it going to be evolved? And how can we get over the current problems of the CSCs? Sir, please.
Sir, वहीं पे बैठे करके you have the mic.
First of all, thank my colleague and batchmate, and we have a long history of shared experience in trying to take the process of IT enablement forward, dating back to almost 15 plus years. Before anything further is said about what we need to do, it's significant that we recognize today where we stand in terms of technology. But before we go into the three paradigms which Sundar said, it's extremely important to carry out a bare bone, clean sheet analysis of what happened, why it happened, and what are the pitfalls which need to be avoided. And also take into consideration the current status of technology and whether we can put it to use. Is CSC still going to be relevant? If it is going to be relevant, how we can make it sustainable? I completely agree with Sumanta that we were the first state to take on this experiment, very enthusiastic. But things didn't work out. And if I look at the past, why things did not work out, two or three things, key things come to my mind. The first one being that the back end, which Mr. Satyanarayana spoke about, the willingness and the preparation for back end improvement was minimal at that time when we started. So essentially the entire process was showcasing the front end, and that's why the model did not succeed, because the adequate number of services were not ready to be integrated into the front end to make the CSC or to make the front end attractive, either commercially or viable in terms of its attraction to the citizen. The second aspect was that probably there was an unwillingness on the part of government to put in adequate resources. And it was felt that probably a model which is essentially B2C model can be developed, and some limited services will come through. Some of the things which were essentially not integrated, but they could be delivered in e-mode. So the emphasis was that let the government not spend too much money, because there is going to be enough B2C activity which will make the CSCs successful. The third thing which comes to my mind is that the awareness of providing good governance through process improvement was nowhere near what it is today. Having said that, and having seen that unless these critical elements are brought in, it is not easy for anyone to succeed. Let me also say a couple of things from the government's perspective today. Now, CSC is not to be seen, as it appears to me in our experience, to be a B2C delivery. It is essentially a G2C delivery. And ideally speaking, it should be two-way traffic. It should be G2C and C2G. So it has to be an interactive delivery point which enables that the distinction between whether it is possible for the governments to get reformed by merely concentrating on the rights of citizens, or is it inadequate, or is it enough, or is it a good way to go in for what we call the reforms process, where you reform the process and make sure that those grievances which are sought to be redressed by the citizens through a process of rights being given, statutory rights being given, is that correct? It appears to me, out of our experience in the state and my interaction with all my colleagues, that it is probably a combination of it. The citizen must have the right for services, but these services, regardless of whether you put statutory right of the citizen or not, cannot be dispensed unless there is a reformed delivery system which is put in place. The second most important issue is that even if you put the reforms in place, even if accountability is put in place, we must recognize today that for any venture of this type to succeed, the sustainability of the model is essential. There is, my experiences with my colleague, in spite of all the enthusiasm and so on, which the departments exhibited, there still appears to be lack of commitment to bring about a change in the process. Why? Why is it so? It is because it is a very difficult task to be performed. It is something which you are called upon to do outside what shines. Now, it is good to show something which is physical in nature rather than something which is process oriented. So, typically, the interests of the departments to go into nitty-gritty of how this process can be reformed and made more efficient is lacking. Unless this process reform takes place, at a speed which technology can enable into the service delivery, it will become very difficult for us to have meaningful CSC structure. I am saying this because we identified the possibility of close to maybe 200 plus services which can be delivered, which are G2C services. But ultimately we found that the readiness of the departments to deliver services was just coming to a double digit, say maybe 15, 14. So somebody said, let's be on the safe side. Let's start with 6 services or 7 services. This is not difficult. If the CSC is to be an attractive model, then adequate number of services have to go to the CSC. At the same time, CSC cannot remain a purely G2C model. It has to bring in what the citizen they needs. Why should I go to the CSC? If I have to go to the CSC, maybe to get a government service, I have to go there once in a lifetime. If it is a death certificate, or if it is a caste certificate, or it's an income certificate, maybe I need to go just once in a lifetime. That is not going to make it attractive. Where do the volumes come from? Volumes come from certain government transactions which are repetitive in nature, where citizen needs to go there maybe once in a month or at least once in a quarter. It could be payment of bills, it could be some other process which is of repetitive nature. All these processes will need to be brought into the CSC portal. Now, unless you do that, unless there is a clarity in the government and a willingness to do it, it will become very difficult to develop a sustainable model. My view is that it has to be barely a B2C. Why should somebody buy a CSC? I mean, B2C is taking place anyway, and it is not stopping, it is not requiring a government intervention. Whether it is the mobile bill payment or it is something else in the private sector, they are going ahead and doing it. The opportunity is that if you have a good CSC model, then there is a possibility of B2C services being integrated, which is not going to be the brand, but it is going to be the butter of the brand. Now, this is how we have to start thinking, that it is a combination of G2C and B2C services which must be brought in. And any reluctance to establish this is going to affect the sustainability of the CSC model. Ideally speaking, if you look around globally, we find that most of these services are not sought to be delivered, not through a kiosk. These are all internet-based. But why CSC continues to be relevant to a country like India is that the penetration of the population, particularly in the rural areas, IT penetration continues to be fairly low. So it is going to remain relevant in foreseeable future. The difference which has come about is that mobile devices, particularly the cell phones, they brought in a revolution. When you talk about technology, the CSC must recognize this ground reality. If you are able to do it, then probably you will be able to integrate the CSC in a manner in which people are actually living today. The third aspect which needs to be deliberated and stop about experience showed that we tried to develop static models. We did not go in for something which was comprehensive or global in nature. Probably thinking that one database for individual services could enough. It is not something which is working. Why is it that even after being in the forefront of IT, today India is one of those countries where you can merrily steal a vehicle, drive anywhere in the country and not be caught? Why is it that the policing system itself is not working out? This is because we failed to invest in a globalized system attacking a problem. The database which we develop, they don't shake hands with each other. Every time somebody comes, a new concept is started as if it's good enough to deliver a concept rather than take it to a completion. There is going to be a need to be sensitive to this very important aspect, and I am extremely happy when Veer and his team came to me, showing me a model which I thought was very close to how it should be done. Now, if you are going to ultimately be in a position to deliver services efficiently, there is going to be a need for a delivery which, when the delivery takes place, the database is automatically updated and it becomes current for all other services to be dispensed. For example, if there is a database which is a citizen or resident database, any time there is a change in the status of the resident, it gets reflected once and that's it. Once it is reflected, it is going to affect all the services which various departments are going to deliver. We never thought about it as an important aspect of the delivery. This kind of awareness which is starting coming, this has to be actually very forcefully followed in case we want to succeed in this. Last point I would like to make is that look, the issue is not whether CSC is to be made relevant, whether it is relevant or it is not. The issue is that we have lost too much time. Now, we are in no position to give apology. We are in a position, we are in a situation where accountability is going to force us into efficient delivery of services. Therefore, my starting remarks are, let's not start looking at the negative side of what went wrong. Learn from the lessons, move forward, use technology which is possible, and do it fast and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, a lot of questions spring to my mind, but I hold back. Okay, and allow the panelists to ask these questions. Next, I request Mr. eHaryana to please share his views.
Fellow panelists and all the delegates, I think what all needs to be said about CSCs has already been said, and at the end of the day, it's really very little left to say, but let me make an attempt. I hope this presentation is in this. So I just titled it as Future of CSCs because that is the theme of this conference, this session. Yeah. Oh, they have to switch on. Okay. Can someone switch, please? Yeah. So, what is going to be the future? But before we talk of the future, just one glimpse of what is the current status of these. This seems to be some sync problem. Some buttons here seems to be, yeah. So this is a snapshot of what is, I tried to quickly run through these numbers in the morning, but it's only a repetition of that. But the key thing is the last line, which shows that the national average of only 100 transactions per month per CSC, which is 3 a day, 3 to 4 a day. 3 to 4 citizens in a geography of about 5 to 10,000 population. So it's none too inspiring, is a quick single word analysis of the CSCs across the country. So what do we do? Why is it so? All these reasons are quite well known, but I just tried to capture it in one slide. And as my friend has just said, yeah. So, very few G2C services, poor connectivity, unreliable power in some places, lack of visibility and image. Today, in several parts of the country, the CSC is seen as a photocopy shop or a, self-recharge point. So what kind of image have we been able to create, and is it the right thing? We need to brand it. Probably lack of branding is one of the things why it is not. And again, repeating what Mr. Chaudhary has mentioned, that there is no BPR. Even in those services which are delivered are little laborious in delivery. Then absence of integrated services. This is what is a very ambitious thing. Even you are not able to deliver in isolated individual standalone services also very well, but integrated services is also, it will add value, but it's today unfortunately not there. And a common platform. Within the same state, so many initiatives exist, and so much of confusion exists in the ranks and files of IT functionaries themselves. So, what to talk of a poor CSC really? Some of these, a combination of these factors is what really is hurting us. Now, when we started on this is what we committed to the people of this country as our vision, that we will make available all government services accessible to the common man in his own locality. That's the birth of the formerly Government of India, approach to CSCs and LEGP in general. But today we need to revisit this vision of this, and also two key things I added here. One is the integrated services, especially for states like Haryana, which are starting a second chapter. This makes eminent sense, and I am told that the presentation on VIS is going to provide an approach. When they made a presentation, it was in Beatty, I said, yes, this is, I wish all the best. I wish it's a very, very tough call that they have taken, and must compliment. There is a way to go. It's not as if that it won't work, it will work, but it needs tremendous amount of traction, political will and administrative will to take it forward. So, but that is what the vision should be. Now, if we rewrite the vision. Second key thing is not only citizens but the businesses. And the third one is customer-centric, citizen-centric, business-centric, customer-centric. Redraw the delivery system, redesign the delivery system from the other man's point of view, not your own point of view. So, I am just repeating from what I said a week, 10 days ago at Cochin in the conference, that we need some paradigm shifts from quantity to quality, quantity plus quality. Our friend Vivek contributed to this, that you had an eye there. So quantity is what we need to, when we have a chance to address this, don't get just floored by the number. Today ETHAL has 2.8 or 2.7 billion records there. But how much of it is really combining quality? So if you combine and multiply it with the quality factor, it may come down to less than 500 million probably, in terms of what the aspiration of the citizen is. Then citizen centricity, transformation, sea change, so that people, get attracted to that. Individual services to integrate, which I mentioned earlier. And this is one thing, onus on citizen to onus on government, or no onus at all. This Rajesh spent a lot of time to explain the practical example. Why do you throw the burden on everything to prove that one person exists, to prove that person is so and so? Every time you knock at the door of any government department, for instance. So, how do you shift the onus on yourself as government and save that onus to citizen? Then outputs to outcomes. So, some of these ambitions, easier said than done. These are all very nice things to say in a conference, but since there are examples, there are standing examples, successful examples, we make bold to present them so that there are champions created and champions take these ideas forward. Now, this also I mentioned in the morning, but I will put one more box there. This again distills whatever has been happening in the BPR or should happen in the BPR segment, so that really clean services, good services are, qualitative services are provided. On the left side is what I mentioned, elimination. Rajesh was very clearly mentioning most of these points, but I gave a structure to that here, that these 6 thumb rules should be applied to those 6 items on the right side. You have a matrix of 6 by 6. Each form you see and validate it against, can I eliminate it, can I optimize it, can I standardize the form, can I integrate it with some other form or some other department, can I automate that form if it is repetitive, can I introduce a self-service through, as he said also, that put the burden on the citizen, reduce your own queues. So, to each one on the right, you apply the left 6 into 6. You have very good ground for, this is for the consultants, for the government functionaries to think. Very simple, logical to do within the department. So, this is an approach to BPR, and we must work in the direction if really we have to make an impact. A service delivered will be, may result in happiness, but if it has to result in delight of the customer, then you have to do this hard way. So, mere BPR is not, process is not the only thing. You need to look at the channel of delivery, people, the technology. I don't want to go into all these details, but it is a multi-pronged approach that is needed if you really want to produce delight in a particular scenario. Now, the last point I would like to make is what is going to be the future of. We are currently thinking on this in Delhi at the national, because the lease of life granted originally by the Union Cabinet is expired, and we are on an extended lease of life as far as CSCs are concerned. So, but very soon that will stop, and then we need to redesign, go to the drawing board and do the CSC thing again. So So at this time, see, questions, issues, I'm not saying there are answers, but there are issues. Is the number adequate? Do we need more spread? With 2.5 lakh gram panchayat, at least one per gram panchayat. And co-terminus with NOFN, national optical fiber, it's going slow, but since investments have been made, it is going to come through 2014 and partly in 2015. So can we make it at least co-terminus with that? So that the connectivity and other issues are also simultaneously addressed in issue spread. The location, co-location in a permanent building. So not only convenience of the public, but also image of that. The respectability of a VLE, respectability of a CSC is also associated with that location. So that is one suggestion. Can they be, as Mr. Chaudhary has mentioned just now, that can it go on surviving on these land records and all these transaction oriented, some of them one time, some of them repetitive? How do we elevate the status of the CSC to a knowledge center? It's not merely for transactions one day that people do, but with applications like in the healthcare, education, agriculture, which matter, in improving the economy as a whole. So, can it play a more vital role in the economy than? See, it's, end of the day, it is the value proposition that I am talking about. How good a value proposition, how big a value proposition is the CSC going to make? Survival depends on that. You don't have to advertise. If there is a value proposition, automatically the footfalls will be there and there will be, increase in the sustainability of the CSC, which is only limited part of the job, but increasing the productivity and satisfaction levels of the citizens, which is the main goal of CSC scheme. Not to see that he earns 5,000 rupees a month, but to see that 5,000 people get the benefit of that CSC. Then, at the end of the day, if they can be picturized, image created as change agents. It's here is a focal point, which is really exuding a lot of new kind of services and new kind of approach. This is the delivery point to go to, single point of reference in the village. That is the kind of image that we need to picture, create, think through and create for this. Ambition should be very high. Our vision should be very high, then at least the achievement will be at least half as good as our vision. So we are calling it as eKranti, as a next version of NEGP, not CSC alone. CSC is one part. There are different components in this e-governance, drawing board. So we said that let us give a good name which people can relate to. NEGP is an abstract word, even educated people may not understand. So we created something which is revolutionary, which is showing some progress and forward movement. So we are, as I talk, we are consulting all the states and ministries on these new ideas. And the key thing is that we need to transform e-governance so that we can transform governance. First, let us set our house in order before we talk to other departments, other ministries, other agencies of the society. So that is the key message with which we are trying to recraft this, and I hope it will be seeing the light of the day pretty soon. And CSCs are going to be, if they have to be relevant, we need to recraft them. They have to take a rebirth in a different form, and then they can really be counted and valued by the citizen going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very enlightening. I'm just going to sum up in just one phrase, I just wanted to sum up what these two very experienced speakers have communicated. Mr. Chaudhary touched upon the attributes of changing the game changer, that's his pet term that he always uses, I'm very fond of. And the second key message that came from Mr. Satyanarayana was transformation delivery. I think it's a very powerful term, sir. which I was really impressed about. So, combining these two, I'd like to open up the house for the panelists. I'd like to invite Nilaya from Accenture, Nilaya Varma, for sharing his thoughts as well as maybe posing some questions to the key speakers.
Thanks, Sumatra. It's actually a privilege to be speaking today because the panelists that I have, Mr. Satyarayana and Mr. Chaudhary, as well as people in the audience, Mr. Vice Malik and Mr. Rajesh Agarwal. When Sumatra actually asked me to talk about what's going to be CSCs 10 years hence, and I said, so what do you want to talk about? And he said, you have to be provocative. And so therefore I thought, when a consultant is asked a question, you can provocate them. The first question is, why do we need CSCs? Because you fundamentally question why do you need that. And obviously, being involved with NEGP for such a long time, fundamental reason we set up any CSCs was we wanted to ensure assisted delivery because connectivity was there, not there then, and the capacity wasn't there. And so when you now see 10 years hence, and that's how I'm going to come to my point and raise the question, you see 10 years hence, and when we're talking about fundamental process reform, fundamental technology changes, mobility we talked about, and the fact that government is the creator of data and also the consumer of data. And, in such a situation, how relevant will be assisted kiosks in times to come is something that we need to think about as we are envisaging CSCs 10 years hence. That was one thought that I thought I had to share. In that context, the other point that I wanted to make, and would be glad to hear your views, sir, is in coaching workshop, in the coaching conference. So you spoke about governance, that we need to fundamentally go back and look at governance. The reality is we created CSCs for the rural sector, rural, and I still very strongly believe we've probably created a knowledge enterprise infrastructure for rural transformation with a number of CSCs that we've created. 5 to 10 years hence, what's going to be the governance agenda for rural India? And our view was, because end of the day, if that's what this infrastructure is going to lead to transformation in rural, I thought there were 3 fundamental things that's going to challenge rural India. One is wellness. You cannot be a great country without healthy citizens, and wellness is going to be extremely important, and technology is and will play a great role. Second is we already, the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister a couple of days back talked about the silent revolution that skilling is happening in India, huge amount of money to make. Skilling would still be very relevant in rural India, given the fact that 10% of the world's population will reside in India and in the rural segment. And third is social entrepreneurship, because with the size of the country that we have, without social enterprise, you cannot necessarily grow. And I thought all of them are extremely relevant with respect to this infrastructure that we've created in CSC. And therefore, when we're emphasizing, especially when you talk about 10 years, our vision and our operating model would have to be, or business model would have to be different. And just one last comment, because we very often refer to PPP, and one of the learnings from private sector has been that most successful companies have had to change their business model every 2 to 3 years of being successful. Just a thought that I thought I'll share. Thank you.
Thanks, Nilaya. Very well said and very succinctly put across. The next speaker that I'd like to invite is Dr. Sanjay Sood. He is head of SCMP at Chandigarh. Sanjay, I would like to specifically ask you, actually build on what Ms. Puri was talking about earlier in the afternoon. She was saying that you're now focusing on Chandigarh, and Chandigarh is a small place. Okay. When I first came to Chandigarh 4 years back, it reminded me of Singapore because I spent considerable amount of time in Singapore. Okay. So, and that was reflected in this afternoon's conversation when she said, that it's got the characteristic of Switzerland, for instance. Okay. But if you look at the size of Chandigarh is small, it's manageable. And this is what you typically take to pilot a new application or a new thought process. It's a mind share that you have, and it's an affluent population that you are having. You don't have the illiterates. Maybe, it's very insignificant. So, I'd like to invite some of your thoughts, and if you can particularly address maybe should we localize the CSCs with some sort of service? Okay, if I were to take Haryana for instance, Haryana has got three parts. It's got Chandigarh, beautiful, on the north side. It's got NCR, and in between the two is what we call as the NH1 corridor. Okay, people who have seen NH1 corridor have not seen the whole of Haryana because the hinterland is completely different. But if you were to create a model for, let's say, the NH1 corridor, where Chandigarh can serve as a pilot, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's a small, manageable geography which you can look at. So, your experiences, please.
Respected most superiors, Secretary Sir, Chaudhary Sir, Dr. Tyagi, Sumantra, Nilaya, and Malik Sir, Atre Sir, I am really thankful to you for giving me this opportunity to share my views on the way CSCs are evolving. Indeed, Chandigarh is a small setting, majorly an urban setting, and affluent by all means. And we have the audience or the localites who are in touch with present and looking up to future. Chandigarh has all the ingredients or the infrastructure to play or to act as the test bed for the entire country. As far as CSC model is concerned, Chandigarh can be considered as a test bed that the rest of the CSCs or rest of the states may reach a level, could be 5 years down the line. For example, we have some birth centers, quite a success story as far as service centers are concerned. We have been working towards evolving them, adding more services, adding more modalities, adding more, trying to innovate the delivery channels. We see that by the way, as Chaudhary sir has mentioned, that CSCs are sort of game changers. I would add that the technologies those we are having here today can certainly be classified as the game changer technologies, which would in turn influence the game changer, that is the CSCs. And those technologies are the communication technologies foremost. We have NOFM coming up, and once we have such pipes reaching the villages, 2.5 lakhs of Grand Panchayats are already, are gearing up to have that kind of a bandwidth. Once we have that kind of bandwidth, which already exists in an urban setting like Chandigarh, we have all the privilege to run experiments, to run pilots, and what we see is that, as pointed out by Secretary Sir, e-health, e-agriculture, e-learning, those are the applications which would largely need that kind of bandwidth, which NOFN is all set up with, and we are now parallelly, along with looking up to the people who are to use those CSCs, sensitizing them by way of running parallel programs which would train them on IT, which would sensitize them on the use of electronic means for completing various services or various requirements. So Chandigarh has certainly the infrastructure which is all empowered, or which can empower the CSCs in a wireless manner, and I see that the mobile communications can really change, or rather make the CSCs bigger, fatter and brighter in terms of the applications or the utilities those are being used, and those are being made available there for the citizens, as mentioned by Secretary Sir and also by Chaudhary Sir, that it is not only the G2C services those we are working towards. Interestingly, as of now we have not ventured much with B2C services here in Chandigarh, but considering the fact that the private agencies, they do have lots of clientele, and the rural population is certainly moving faster towards utilizing these services, and again the dependency comes on the bandwidth. And once we have these kind of services available, I'm sure a test bed like Chandigarh would prove to be some sort of a blessing for the entire country in a way to run pilots or in a way to experiment various applications. Those would finally be used in the rural sector. So I believe Chandigarh has a perfect kind of infrastructure and a setting which can show up in a way to give us lessons or learnings which can be used for the rest of the country.
Thank you, Sanjay. It's always a delight to hear Dr. Dinesh Tyagi speak new ideas out of the box all the time. But I would kindly request you to make the top 2 points. Okay, it's going to be difficult for you, I know that, but you have to make those the top 2 points.
Respected panelist, Shri Satyanaranji, Secretary DIT, Shri Chaudhary, Advisor, Nile Verma, Mr. Malik, and all the other ladies and gentlemen. See, I won't take much time because I've already spoken about CSC, and actually I can go on for speaking of CSC. That's my life. So I can actually go on for as many times you want, as many stories you want. But I think today's topic is what will happen to CSC 10 years after. Let me take from what Nile said, and I will take from the perspective, not from government perspective, a citizen, a person in rural India. What do they need? What do they need? He needs information, knowledge and skills, and he needs G2C service delivery at his doorstep. Is there a way out? What is the way out? Today we have created a way out of an assisted formal delivery. 10 years down the line, I do wonder when he said whether everything is now online, 10 years down the line when connectivity improves, power situation improves and everybody gets a tablet, will the CSC have a relevance? See, saying if you have eBay and Amazon working even today, will the mall and store have a relevance? See, similar to what CSC. CSC, as I said, it's not a scheme or a project which I say. CSC is building enterprise and entrepreneurship. And therefore, the enterprise and entrepreneurship over a period of time will evolve according to the technology and according to the needs of the community, both in terms of meeting B2C requirement and G2C requirement. So therefore, creating an enterprise and entrepreneurship itself is a big challenge. It's not going to be an easy story. It's going to be very difficult for state. It varies from state to state. It will have difference from place to place. It will take initiatives so people, as I told, it also a genetically trait for people to become entrepreneur. You will see a lot of churning for people. People who got into this mandate only to create a government platform will finally slowly disappear as the relevance of government decreases. People who got into to get a job will continue depending on how much income he can generate or his alternative choice of employment. And the really who is already enterprise and went to want entrepreneurship will continue. So you will find as in 10 years down the line, the really who is today being identified for common service centers may not be the same really, but it will be an enterprise and entrepreneurship. And actually it will be, as Secretary Sir said, it will be a knowledge center. The ultimate vision of the what is it will be a knowledge center of imparting what you need. See, today you need to impart, you need to provide them help. It will churn out to be a telemedicine center. You need to create education hubs in technology. It will become an education center. You need to create something of a Kisan Vikas Kendra. It will become an agriculture extension center. You want to provide skills of that nature in that community and create. It will become a skill development center. At 10 years down the line, I am very convinced. I firmly believe CSC in whatever form and whatever name it is called, the front end for delivery, what a citizen needs in the village will continue. He will sustain it because he needs it. He doesn't want to the government, he does offices, he doesn't want to go into the places where he gets harassed and he is today willing to pay for that service. As long as he is willing to pay, as the entrepreneur is going to continue the business, irrespective of what technology happens, I think common service centers will continue and will keep on adding. With government, a lot of infrastructure requirement, support in G2C, if the government takes initiative, I am sure it will be a great business opportunity and creating rural employment opportunity. I just share the last thought which here the Skill Development Council because today, and then I close, this National Skill Development Council has today a program, a large program. But what they do skill development like a classroom skill development. They'll put biometric and they will do attendance, 25 seaters, all that. What you need in rural India,
See, I need only one blacksmith, one turner, or one electrician, and one mobile repair in every village. I don't need 25. The classroom model of skill development is limitation. A common service center, see, actually if you do one across the country, you can train 1 lakh people and one in every village. The concept of Ram Raj or concept of earlier people where every village used to have one dhobi, one carpenter, one blacksmith and one knife, actually we converted one mobile repair, one electrician and one bike repair wala. All this will continue in rural India. You can change the skill development format by creating this format of skill development. I think they agreed, we signed the agreement, we are doing first time a course on the common service centers in the same format. One person in every village so that he get employment. He is not willing to go outside. Common service centers has a great future and of course he will evolve over a period of time in 10 years down the line in a different format. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I was actually, when you were mentioning during the previous session, that like people are coming for jobs, okay, to the government after taking up the CSCs. When you were talking about the CSCs becoming technosmiths, probably they will ask you for a separate caste certificate. Okay. I would like this session to be a little more participative, so I'm going to be involving the audience right now to pose questions to the key speakers here. I would like to invite Mr. Rajesh Agarwal to have the privilege of the first question. I'm going to pass the mic around because these are some of the concepts expressed by the two gentlemen. They're very intensive and heavy, so I would kindly request you.
I believe in 10 years, basically the nature of business CSCs do. That will change. The G2C probably will shift from getting license and permits to something more like telemedicine, virtual classrooms, like that kind of stuff. Already, for example, our labor department, they are using CSCs as skill development centers. It's working very well along with many private partners. Spanco in Pune region, Spanco runs our CSCs. They are doing great stuff there. I think the nature of business is going to change. CSCs will remain.
Sir, in specific, Mr. Chaudhary was mentioning, critical mass of services, especially, like the CSCs would become, the focal points for addressing critical mass of services. Are there some thoughts on that? Or are there any questions that you would like to ask Mr. Chaudhary?
No, I will leave it to others.
Okay. I'd like to invite the gentleman from Vakrangi to ask any questions if he's got anything specific from a practical implementation perspective, because you have been a very strong implementer in multiple states.
What I would like to ask is, when we talk in terms of multitasking at the center, what I found is, you would need more than one resource at that particular place. Like we try to think about telemedicine at the same center. Now the kind of skills required for the paramedics is not the same. You can't, who is a techno-smith guy. So now, is it like, you need extra space for a bed, and then you need a person which is the overhead on the whole thing. So as much as we talk about like integrating so many things in one center, unless we make it, not per village, but maybe as a combination of 10 villages and centralize some of these things, viability will always remain a question mark. That's my question.
Sir, I would like to pass on this question to Mr. Satyanarayana. In your eKranti blueprint, okay, just building up on the question that was posed by this gentleman. In your eKranti blueprint, what is the model that you have been having with regard to building specific skill sets? Because that is the type of transformation delivery that you have been talking about. So what are the thoughts that you have in your mind?
Yeah, I think the point made, by Sandeep is really valid, that we need to look at the viability of the
center, it has to survive first to help others. So that is very much to be kept in view, which is again very closely linked with the value proposition that I mentioned. If there is a value, it will survive. There is no value, it will die. It will become irrelevant. So what is that value proposition? How do you craft that value proposition, public, private, put together, is the million-dollar question. So, while there is a reasonable belief that there is a role for the CSCs, that belief is founded on the presumption that this value is going to be continuously improved, recrafted, and the viability, keeping the viability in view. So, having said that, yes, in the next version of NEGP, which I called just now as eKranti, a few propositions have been made, like the paradigm shifts that I mentioned there should become more or less mandatory. If you make it optional that you can pass off any service as e-service, which frankly between you and me is happening in large number of cases. We don't achieve that kind of, so you need to, just as I would go back to 8 years or so, we'll recollect the date also, I think, where they said, originally the scheme of the NCA 21 was that you can have parallel systems, paper-based filings and electronic filing. One fine morning, he and his secretary, 4th September, I don't know.
16th September.
16th September. Onwards, no paper will be accepted, come on. So, I'm just taking that example. Unless you mandate certain things, these radical things won't happen. So, mandating a transformation before a rupee is sanctioned or spent, either by the public sector or by the private sector, is one of the, it automatically pushes the required capacities to be built in that. At that time, we thought hell will break loose on 17th of September, but hell did not break loose. Very soon, in 2-3 weeks' time, the entire community of corporates and their secretaries woke up, and then the capacities got built up in no time. So, the eKranti point of view, a number of such mandatory things have been suggested there in the approach paper. This is only one example I am giving, which will put a kind of a rigid thing. It will force people to work backwards and build whatever capacities are required to achieve that. So that is one point I would say at the highest level, at the policy making administrative levels. But coming to the CSC itself, what kind of skill sets are needed? Absolutely, I agree that a technosmith, multi-pronged, to some extent, some of the course can be done, services can be delivered, but for specialized skills like healthcare services, like skill development, like some education services, etc. You need to supplement it with people who are tasked, are specially skilled in those areas, are competent to do that. Then a combination of this, a generalist, technosmith, plus a specialist, grassroots level specialist in different areas that we choose. That will be a very good combination in the future. We need to work it into the scheme of the CSCs.
Thank you, sir.
I think the CSC is now sort of getting shape of becoming a diversified, corporate. And if you're ready to take angel investors, I'm ready to put my money in. And I would like to, in fact, ask Mr. Malik for the next question. I think he's got quite a bit of them. We'll take one or two questions from him.
Thank you so much. As a matter of fact, one has seen the range. I am in that mindset where Mr. P.K. Chaudhary started, that our target to set up the CSCs first focus on G2C services, and it brings along with it other supporting services which help him build his revenue base. But even in G2C services, the volumes have to matter and those have to be of repetitive nature, in which we took basically like metering, billing and collection of the electricity utility as a repetitive kind of nature of a service. The electricity utility is today spending about 15.5 rupees per bill in terms of meter reading, then meter bill printing and distribution. We said our CSC operator would do this job for him. And if he does 2000 connections reading, it gives him a very solid base. Similarly, his direction was that I want every payment which a citizen is required to make to the government should be accepted at the CSC. So we're looking at this different thing. The other extreme is what Wakarangi has done as a purely business model and a business driven model. It is an evolving process. It will go ahead. I'm sure 10 years is a long time in terms of technology and those kinds of things. But I would like to raise two questions which I'm presently confronted. That in order to bring services within the fold of CSC, which raise the excitement of the citizens to use the CSC, we need to do a lot of process changes in the department. This is my major challenge. As a matter of fact, I shared one instance with him. I said, look, if I have to have a good resident database, it's on. If I have to have a good resident database, we must integrate the birth and death register of the state with that resident database in order to keep it live. When I go to the birth register database, we'll find that a birth certificate and birth register is maintained by the health department. 84% of the deliveries in Haryana are institutional deliveries, of which a majority are from private hospitals, private nursing homes. But here is a mindset which says if a private doctor from a private nursing home register a birth on the system, I am not going to accept it unless my MO approves. Now, the process changes will come with a change in mindset. How do we achieve it? One. Second, the process change requires going into that depth, which requires a complexity to be converted into a simplicity. And this is a greater task than policy formulation. That capacity or that intensity or that commitment somehow is not forthcoming. Third, wherever it is there, we find that the capacity available within the departments to advise them is extremely limited, and we have no structure how to hire that capacity and take it. How to make big changes, which are the challenges of today.
Quickly, I agree with both all the three propositions, but let me quickly address and then pass on to my friend here for supplementation for his own view. First of all, I think it's the medical birth certificate example that you have taken is very typical of what is.
It's only a representative
of
different departmental mindsets.
So one simple thing, which was that big busy slide, one of the things I said was, we must move towards trust-based system. Single sentence. Move your existing system, whatever it is, to a trust-based system. Then the problem would be addressed considerably and mandate that is number one suggestion that I will give. Ask all the departments to move to it. Try and see what all they can move to: trust-based system, self-declaration-based system, no affidavit-based system, etc. The second suggestion is, once you mandate it, as I mentioned earlier, you need to. There is a problem in that, definitely. It's easier said than done. There may be resistance, there may be, on day one, the entire proposal could be shot. One other suggestion we made in this paper was that ask each department to come with top 5 suggestions which are transformative in nature. Top 3, top 5. They have to come with those suggestions. Then once it is approved at the highest level, then it will begin to, you are seeing the outcome. What are the 5 transformational ideas, transformational outcomes? Let them come up with it, let them have brainstorming and come up with those 5. Keeping the latest technologies, latest possibilities, latest thinking in view. Come up with 5. You work backwards and do it. Is one more session which will make it happen. The third you said about capacity. Yes. Capacities need to be built. That is why we need for such conferences and sharing of ideas and so on. But more structured way we have to address this reform issue in the country. And my belief is that if one is driven to the wall, if you have certain compulsion, mandation, the capacities will, automatically swell.
Just to share with you, sir, this is what precisely Mr. P.K. Chaudhary did for the entire 2013. All the 50, 60 departments were called and he simply said, I want you to identify 2 or 3 services which cover the largest span of citizens. You select those and those are to be delivered by December 2013. That's what we were moving towards. But yes, we have had issues on that. I'll leave it to you.
Just a few quick points I will make. First is that there is an unanswered question, right? And it is really complicated. I would like to respond to this by stating 2 things. Actually, what you said and the example which was given by you, there is some kind of a constructive positioning which needs to be taken. The issue is we invariably, particularly in the government and also in the corporate sector, to a certain extent, we worry too much about the future and we do not recognize what has been bestowed to the present. My view is that past, I just mentioned to you, my colleague, past 15 years we have been trying to do this. Nothing has changed so substantially in the past 1 decade for you to start thinking that there is some kind of a problem with the CSC model. Let me try and say 2 points. One, I already mentioned, I need not repeat, that the IT penetration is so low in the country that sitting in this room in the city of Chandigarh, probably you have no idea how badly the rural sector is being serviced. We are absolutely nowhere near. We have not even educated here to start demanding from the government. What is due? We are in such a situation where the concept of service delivery is an alien to the sector. He is actually going from pillar to post, trying to find out what exactly the government wants to do for him. Now, in this kind of a situation, talk about 10 years, let me tell you, your 20 years span is good enough. there is no need to worry. I tried to say that we need to actually proceed much faster than what we are doing. Second point I would like to make address to your apprehension, your provocation is that please do not forget the innovative of entrepreneurship which is talked about. Let's set up some kind of a structure where the government is displaced by a more efficient delivery system. Where do citizens go to get their services? They go to a government office. Now, I can afford to say all this because I am no longer part of the August Indian Administrative Service Starting. As a citizen, if I have to go to an office to get a service, it is not a good experience. CSC has the potential of transforming that interface between the citizen and the government. What is required is innovative technology application. So that citizen, as Mr. Satyanarayana was saying, citizen starts feeling that this is the place for me to go. Second aspect, which is extremely important to appreciate, that even in the most advanced, whether you talk about Singapore or Europe or United States, there are certain services for which physical presence is absolutely essential. What is good by those services? Those are services which are going to be going beyond this century. You have to be physically present. Would you like the citizen to be physically present in an office which is supposed to be doing the back end, or what is represented as the smart face of the interface of the citizen? For those services, you need to have a delivery system which is much better than what it's doing. The issue is, and I'm actually repeating myself because they came up again and it's born out of experience that we've had. The number of services has to be much more. As my colleague mentioned, the total transactions which are taking place, 4 or 5 is not big, and nobody is going to be attracted to the CSC. You have to make sure that it is both smart, it is an efficient delivery system, but it is also having adequate business. That is the G2C business, which makes it attractive. Everything else will fall in line. Now, coming to the very interesting point which Mr. Malik made. The only difference between you and us sitting here is that you are going to become a consultant like us in 4 to 5 years' time. The point is that everyone agrees that it is a challenge. But to say that somebody else is going to come and face that challenge is wrong. We have to face it. All that you mentioned and all the experience, very painful experience, is the challenge. That is what is required. That's why when I started by saying that it is the most painful and thankless job that we are supposed to perform. Unless you reform processes, unless you motivate the departments to become smart, it is not going to happen. And it is no point in trying to put some of these services, like Mr. Satyanarayana said, that these are e-delivery services. It's pointless to talk about those unless meaningful services go into the system. Coming to the issue I don't want to share leave aside the difficulties that we face, but we met with tremendous success also. Now, it is something which is going to take place. please be rest assured, and you know it, I don't need to tell you or give you the comfort. It is going to happen because there is a game changer which has come, which is the demand of the citizen moving from equality to accountability. What are you going to do about it? What do you think is happening on the streets today? Governments are going to be forced to change these processes. I think we should be part of the process change. We should not sit, we should try and speed. Let me share something with you and my colleague knows. When I was in India, we had extremely difficult time in trying to bring departments together for a very small vote, just the previous vote. Nobody, believe me, whether it is in India or any other country, nobody is willing to give away what is their perceived power. And good governance is not about exercising power. That is regulation. Good governance is about efficient delivery of services. Departments, authorities will have to be mandated to give up power in the larger interest of efficient delivery. There is no escape from this. Now, coming to the very interesting point which my fellow panelists made there about Chandigarh being an appropriate place to showcase this. I would say yes, today it is. But very soon, given the IT penetration in Chandigarh, the aspiration of the consumer, which is the citizen, is going to be completely changed. If you ask me as a resident of Chandigarh, who has got internet access, who is IT literate, I don't want to go to a CSC. Tell me which services you can give me which are internet based. I don't want to go to your office, whether you like it or you don't like it. Why is it that if I have a driver's license and it is lost, and I want a duplicate license, all I need to do is fill up an application. Make sure I have digital signature so it's not a fake application. And send it to me by courier. Why should I come to your office? You have to start thinking as you evolve how you're going to make your technology to stay relevant. It is not a static situation, it is a dynamic situation in which innovative application of technology will make you survive. But having said that, let me reassure you that for a conceivable future, it is going to remain extremely relevant to go into these CSCs.
I know we are running short of time, but I would like to give 2 questions to the audience, please. Anybody? 2 questions. Yes, Ghanshyamji.
Yeah.
Sir, start my question from the success and failure in Haryana regarding CSCs and service delivery. So, as Jaggi has said that initially when we had gone to the SCA model for establishing the rural CSCs in Haryana, that couldn't work. And now when we are going through the selection of the VLE models, then your suggestion was there that we should have PPP model. We should involve the private sector also in this new model. Secondly, sir, we had tested the BC model in Haryana. We issued 16 lakhs smart cards to our social welfare pensioners and 10 banks के साथ हमने tie-up किया था. When that model could not succeed, we started disbursement of our pensions through our panchayats. We have 60,000 panchayats in our state. One question is that can we have some selected panchayat PRA as our VLEs because for verification services also we are going through either my Patwari is verifying at the village or my Lambardar or my Sarpanch. One question is that. Secondly, sir, as sir, you rightly said that we have also done some successes. In 2006, we established through IT department 19 eDisha centers at district level. Today, sir, we have 105 eDisha centers right up to my Dabwali in my Sirsa district, Telinangal in Mahendragarh and all corners of the states and delivering the e-services and contributing to e-tal also, for which we have reached up to 4th place in the country. Sir, even as far as the mandatory delivery of the service is concerned, recently our government has announced a number of vacancies through the Haryana Staff Selection Commission and Police. And it was mandated that all the applications will be taken online and every person has to submit a e-challan. Sir, you will be surprised that in January 2014, 25 lakhs plus e-challans have been submitted through our system in Haryana. It is first time in the history. So that is not the case that connectivity is not there and in rural area we cannot be situated. Only question is that what model we have to select. Similarly, sir, to implement
Gachangi, if you can please
half. We are the first state to implement the National Food Security Act 2013 now. And we have 9,300 fair price shop owners, wherein there are some graduate also. Can we select some of them who are qualified for our VMs?
Sir, Dr. Tyagi, I think...
why it failed in Haryana is not because of Haryana government. I think the fact because the model was same. Unfortunately, the 3 vendors who got selected, they not only went from Haryana, they went from all over the country. The 3 IS for tech which was there, the comment which was there, technology, they went not only from here, they went from UP, Tamil Nadu, but they had other vendors who survived and they selected the new vendor quickly and the process continued. So partly the blame may be in terms of G2C not enabling because that's how the model was designed. See, this aggressiveness of private bidders in order to create at that time saying that there's a huge value at the bottom of the pyramid and I can survive without government support, without G2C, was not calculated properly. So the mistake on the part of the private enterprises and private vendors who participate in the bidding process to underestimate their value proposition in bidding for the process. So it's not because of that. The second point is mentioned, I never said that you select a PPP. I only told you that what are the nuances of not selecting this. Because I actually told you there are people who are discerning why you have an SCA. So what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And I said the scheme exists for state to take a call. It is every state has to take its own call in order to decide what model they want to adopt. What is the best interest of the state? I don't think that is the issue.
Thank you. One last question from the audience, please. Okay, we don't have any. Do you have a question? Do you have a question? Yeah. Can you just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, myself Narendra Malik, and my question is that suppose I am a VLE and all the government employees and private players are implementing lots of CSC services in Haryana. But if we think about VLE, all the equipments which are set up at the rural level, they are operating by electricity. But there are frequently cuts in Haryana of electricity. How a VLE can survive without electricity? This is my question, and what is the solution for this?
Should I respond?
Sir,
Mike. Well, I'll respond to your question. While formulating the scheme, we were really, we were really aware of this ground reality, and we took a call because also saying my electricity utility in the state says No, it's okay. It says that it is supplying 12 hours power in the rural areas. But we have also to look at it, what is that 12-hour power bank, the power supply bank? It is from say 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock. It is again 1 hour during the noon time, and in the evening say from 6 to 11. So those are not really the working hours. It is for this reason that we looked at the possibilities both sides, that maybe till that situation improves, the VLE may have to keep a backup support, and that is also the difference that in the revenue sharing model, a differential has been maintained where a VLE, in order to compensate for higher cost on power backup, has been given higher share of the total revenues, which is 80%, as compared to an urban operator who has been given a 70% share. It has been duly recognized and factored. Simultaneously, we are also looking at, I have told Hareda to find out that in order to maintain the minimal operations, what kind of a solar power backup can be thought of to be brought into it, where probably the government could. May I request anybody to keep their phones on silence? So we are looking at that possibility also, because the biggest bottleneck found in that almost invariably every service would require printing of a receipt, printing of a certificate, and operation of a printer, which requires more power than probably operation of 3 laptops or desktops thereon. So we are looking at also the possibility of keeping an inverter, a power backup, a solar backup, a combination of the 3, and accounting for a higher revenue share on account of these extra expenses.
Thank you, sir. I think we have just run out of time. We request Mr. Chaudhary to just take a minute to sum up this and do the closing observations, please.
I thought I spoke too much. But it's very, very interesting experience today. But I think the fundamental thing which came out of this discussion was that there is a possibility of making the CSCs work even today and in future with the new concepts which are developing. There is going to be definite excitement of those who made the CSCs and those who get delivery from CSCs to keep them relevant in foreseeable future. Also, with the new avatar of National E-Governance Plan, which is coming, very correctly pointed out by Mr. Satyanarayan, that there is going to be a need to look at a matrix where we are able to see which processes can be automated, what are the redundancies, how we can address these. This is going to be extremely important in order to make sure that whatever comes out of the CSC as a service is something which is a value proposition. It is not something which does not excite or interest the consumer. The third point, which came out very strongly, was that ultimately, whether CSC is successful, what is the index which you are going to attach to judging whether this entire new conceptualization of CSC is successful or not, is going to be determined by the consumer. It's not something which we are going to sit here and decide. So the focus which needs to come on the consumer-based delivery is going to be critical when we conceive the CSCs today. Now, the other issue which came up was some of the things which were said, which are extremely important. They show the way for the future. Now, CSCs, given our current situation, given our current socio-economic distribution in the country, CSC should not be viewed merely as a delivery point. There is a potential for CSCs to become agents of change. And there is a potential of CSCs going ahead to make entrepreneurs who are not just traditional entrepreneurs, but they are real entrepreneurs of the future. The last point which I would like to make from my side is that, and this is a repetition of what I have continued to say for the past almost 2 years, that let us not be pessimistic about things. Let's be optimistic. Let at least those who are trying to implement show the enthusiasm. Only then people will get excited. There is no change which comes about unless the actors of the change are themselves excited about it. With these words, I would like to thank the panelists and I would like to thank the audience for this first
Audience, please give them a very exciting and interesting conversation. Thank you, gentlemen. It was really nice to have you.
So please be seated. There is a ceremony to. I now request Shri R. Sumantra ji to present the token of appreciation to all the dignitaries on the dais. Can we have the mementos in the short? This was really one of the most interactive sessions of the day. I would now request for a group photograph of all the speakers. I now request CEO LH Technomedia, Shri Ravi Gupta ji, to felicitate Shri Sumantra ji. I invite everyone for a visit to Pinjore Garden followed by dinner. The Mughal style garden is well known for its fountains and tree groves, so please join us there for dinner.